We're at Space Gallery in Pasadena, ad agency during the week called Eisenberg, and on the weekends transforms into a gallery called Space. But when this place was built, the owner, Eric Eisenberg, did have in the back of his mind that he would be showing and displaying artwork. He loves art, it's a passion, and he wanted to bring that to work and to the public as well. It's a lot of work that is, I call story-based imagery, that is maybe leads you on a path to a story of some sort, but kind of also leaves it open for interpretation. This current show, The Universe is in Us, is kind of looking inward and also kind of responding to what's around us, like so many artists do.
This series was all done about Oregon. I tend to spend some summertime up in the mountains, the Cascade Mountains, about 2 hours from Portland, deep into the mountain. There's very clear, very clean water up there. You can literally drink it out of the ground, which I would never ever have dreamed of drinking river water or drinking, water out of the ground. But that's actually really basic to what the world used to be. We could drink the water, and so this space that I go to is very clean and the air is really pure, and so I try to kind of capture that in an idea with color and light so that it evokes that feeling of something very clean and pure and natural, and maybe even evokes a certain kind of sound of what you would hear if you were right by the river at night or at sunset or something. So that's what these paintings are about. You can see that there's some relationship to what you call pointillism. I do love Seurat, who is kind of the father of that concept. He's a wonderful painter, and I absolutely love the modular quality of the work he has done. So it probably just came out because I love his work. I get so much out of being an artist. It kind of keeps me from being completely crazy. So when I get a chance to just be alone with my work and my painting and the simplicity of it, and I can just tune all that out, it helps me survive. And that is one of the reasons I started teaching art, because for some people, even children, that they find that, like they might find it with music, they might find it with running, but they also sometimes find it with painting. And I'm one of the people that found it with painting and art making.
I've got some masks and some costumes, and later on I'm going to be dressing up and creeping people out. Everything that I have brought together to make my masks are found stuff. So I go to thrift stores, I go to reuse shops. I like to have things that have had a past life. I feel like there's some history to that. I like the worn in kind of feel of it. I also like this feeling that there was something that was made for one use, and now it's being recontextualized and making it different. So to me, that's something that's really interesting. It's not until I collect everything together and it starts to speak to me on how that mask is going to be made and what that character is going to be as far as color and shape and the mood of it. So really, it's kind of like all these objects speak to me and tell me kind of like how to make the mask and the character. Some of my masks kind of focus on different emotions. So I have some that are a little more whimsical and some that are a little more aggressive. The one I'm going to be wearing tonight, she can come off as a little creepy. All my masks are women, and they're kind of different aspects of myself and other women that I know. I'm looking at every culture of mask making and dressing up. I use beads from thrift stores, from resale, but instead of sewing beads, I'm using kind of a lowbrow technique of, I use hot glue. And I found colored hot glue, which kind of feels resin-like, and I like this play of this traditional bead technique with a very modern kind of lowbrow craft technique. And I kind of like that mashup of craft and found things and that kind of lowbrow quality that is included in that. I think what's cool about costumes and masks in general is that there's a performative aspect to them. And then what's interesting about seeing them in a gallery space is that the context kind of changes a little bit. And I find that really interesting, how suddenly it's notes on the wall, don't touch it. Whereas in another space, it's no, wear me and dance around. I think that's really interesting.
The elevator and the entryway was not really that interesting to the company, so they decided to use this stairway and let an artist do something with it to make it a little bit more inspiring. So I was that artist, and they let me go pretty wild in here. I grew up spending a lot of time in Malibu, and those floats used to wash up on the beach, and I really always loved them. You know, they'd be this blue glass with a rope tied around it, and these really feel like the same thing. It kind of, like, I never thought about that when I was making them, especially because it's, you know, you're coming down and up through space. It absolutely feels aquatic. I mean, and the music, I think, actually makes it feel more like that too. It was obvious once somebody said it, I was like, oh yeah, of course, this is the underwater ride. It took about a year to put this together. It was a blessing to have that much time, so I got to really take my time and come in here and look at it and experiment with ideas and hang things up and take them down and put this string up and turn on a black light and see what it feels like in here and just sit with it. And it really kind of informed where a lot of things were hung. And I mean, it was up for months, actually. There were people who asked me, and they're like, is this it? And I was like, no, there'll be more. It's just, you know, just helping me figure out what I want to do. And you know, the amazing thing is that there's a bank upstairs. The conversations that I've had with the ladies from the credit union have been amazing, because they are really curious about, like, what is this? You know, what is it supposed to do? They ask me questions like that the art people don't ask those kinds of questions. And those are the best questions, I think, you know, because it really helps me understand what is the point of what I'm doing, you know, and what because I don't really ask myself those questions, you know, in ways that I answer out loud. And so to have the opportunity to talk to somebody and to say, well, I don't really know. I want you to think about that, and I want you to talk to me about it. So maybe that's just what it's about, you know. And that part was really nice.
We're at Red Hen Press. A great deal of the publishers in the country are nonprofits. Most university presses, people don't realize those are nonprofit organizations. Ends up being actually a fairly necessary component to literature, because a lot of the publishing that's out there that's not part of the big five at this stage is done largely by nonprofit presses. And they're necessarily nonprofit because you can't really publish and print, let's say, an edition of 500 or 1,000 poetry books and make enough money to reprint the books, let alone stay in business. In addition to being a publisher publishing books, we do workshops in public schools. We teach kids. We have writers go in, do workshops with them. In terms of this space, we have rotating art exhibits. Right now we have one with 3 photographers. So Sally Kruger-Wyman, Emily Petrie, and Rex Wilder. About 40% of our publication schedule is poetry. Otherwise it's contemporary literature, nonfiction, fiction, basically prose. That could be short stories, novels, memoir. If you're interested in becoming a published author, send your work out to literary journals. I think a lot of people aren't quite aware of how important that really is. You need to do a lot of writing and send it out. It's fairly grueling at first, you know, being faced with a lot of rejection, and there is a lot of that. but you learn a lot from that process. You are rejected, and eventually kind of figure out what it is that people are looking for, what they're interested in. If you do enough of it, you'll start to kind of redirect what you're doing. You kind of continue to be authentic in terms of what you're doing, but you kind of change it around in such a way that you have an audience. The writer that we have here tonight, Florencia Ramirez, so she's an example of one of our nonfiction writers. She's writing about the issue of sustainability, water, and food. To us, that was an important issue, and obviously I would say not an issue that's that important to the big New York publishers. I mean, I would suspect somebody would have eventually published her. For us, we felt it was like a critical subject that needed to be published.
We've had people coming through since 6 o'clock and learning how to make organic tortillas and drinking some organic tequila. So we've had a good time here tonight. And what I've been talking to with people as folks as they've come through is about my book, Eat Less Water, and to show that even though it looks, when you walk in this room, it looks like we're just making tortillas, but we're activists. I'm making this connection between food and water because 70% of all fresh water on the planet is used to grow food. And when we make choices of, choosing organic, non-GMO masa harina, which is one of the ingredients for tortillas, it does make an impact on water systems around the world. It's good for rivers, it's good for underground water, it's good for our reservoirs because the land has the capacity to hold water at much higher rates when it's not been treated with chemicals than when it has been treated with chemicals. So that's what we're doing. We're making tortillas and teaching people how simple it is to make something from scratch, like a tortilla that only requires 3 ingredients: water, masa harina, and salt. That's it. And talk to them about how you can make extra and put it in the refrigerator, and those simple things make a difference, will make a difference in water systems. And also make a difference for the health of our bodies, because we all have rivers that are coursing through us. And so what I've learned through the process of traveling through to different farms around the country during the research of the book is that if it's good for the river, it's good for our bodies. And it also happens to be more delicious. In the book, I talk about organic agriculture as an action step to save water. Because when we spray the land with chemicals, we diminish the capacity of the soil to hold water. Because chemicals are designed to kill. They're designed to kill weeds or pests or fungus. But the unintended result is that they kill the microbiology of the soil. It's the microbiology that holds water. So when that disappears, so does the capacity of that land to hold water. And then the plant is thirstier and the root systems are more shallow. Instead of the root systems digging deeper and deeper into the soil and having access to more water, they need more water. And then the plant also isn't drawing up minerals that are good for our bodies too. So when we eat it, we're not only eating plant that required more water, but also a plant that isn't as nutritious. The nutrition of food has fallen since 1960 pretty much across the board, except for carrots, for whatever reason, carrots. But and in a place like Pasadena, it sometimes feels like there's lots of organic food. But nationwide, only 3% of cropland is dedicated to organic crops. So there's lots of room for improvement in growth. And it's reaching for that organic, that USDA label, or it's getting out to the farmers market and meeting the farmers and purchasing that organic and asking them the questions about how do they raise that food, and knowing that you are an activist. You are a water activist every day if you choose to be, in your kitchen and out when we're choosing to go to the farmer's market or choosing that farm-to-table restaurant because they're supporting organic agriculture.
So we're the California Art Club. We're a plein air organization founded in 1909 by some of our California plein air artists such as William Wendt. And we've run today and we're on the 108th gold medal. So we've had 108 gold medal exhibitions. And this is where we've had our 100th gold medal exhibition was at this space. We've moved around, but we came back to the PMCA for one last show here. The theme is spectacular work. So the artists can submit work of any subject matter that they like. So we have figure work, we have urban work. So a lot of our artists are from California, so they have works of LA, San Francisco, San Diego, but we have some artists from New York and Florida and Massachusetts. So we have artwork from around the country, and we have some excellent figure, urban, and landscape work. So we have, I think, 5 artists here tonight that are actually doing live demos. So there are 204 artists in the exhibition, but we have about 5 that we've invited here tonight. We have Dino Mahaffey, who's a sculptor. So he's one of our galleries, and he's showing you how he works his process out from doing a figure sculpture. And then behind me we have Lori Hendricks, and she's a local Californian artist, and she's doing some landscape work. We also have a watercolorist. His name is Cliff Barnes, and he's in the gallery behind me to my left, and he's doing a seascape of around Point Lobos. He took a picture there, and so he's doing a watercolor seascape. And then later tonight we're having Rohini Sen, who's one of our younger artists. She teaches locally in LA, and she'll be doing a figure painting. So we have many artists here tonight.
Hi, I'm Chuck Kovacic. I'm a signature member of the California Art Club, and I'm participating in the 108th annual Gold Medal Show. And one of the 2 paintings that I submitted this year and were included in the show, one of which is an oil presentation of Coucoran. Coucoran is a small village in the south of France near Aix-en-Provence. And one of its most distinguishing features that has turned up in motion pictures and commercials is a spot called the Letang, which basically means a shallow reflecting pool. So this is one end of that water feature, and it's quite popular with tourists and tour groups. A lot of nice little cafes and restaurants around the area. Great place to paint and get a glass of wine or 2. And you have all these wonderful reflections of what are generically termed plane trees, Plane. Why they call them plane trees, I'm not quite certain, other than they seem to be a basic generic type of tree. Very simple, very plain. But it's the way they trim them. If you look at the painting, you'll notice that the tops are kind of cropped in a specific way. They're somewhat evocative in the way they grow to the eucalyptus trees here in Southern California. But it was the light and the reflections that drew me to this particular subject matter. And I was not the only artist there that day that was painting away. It's quite popular with tourists and artists. And if you ever have an opportunity to go to Aix-en-Provence, make a point of going to Coucoran, mention my name, and, well, don't mention my name. They can't give everybody the discount to be allowed to paint there, but you'll find it a worthwhile experience.
A lot of my work is representational and figurative. My background's zoology as well, so I do incorporate wild animals and ecosystems and things like that. My main interest at the moment in my current body of work that I'm working on is the Indigenous and First Nations group of people from America first, but I do want to look at that as a global idea, and also the themes of preservation and restoration of people groups, the marginalized, and also how their connection with the land and the people and the ecosystems that are just sacredly theirs are really important, and how they're very connected. So I want to display that in a beautiful way in my art, and I'm kind of working towards figuring out how to do that in bigger compositions. But those are the main interests in my work.